A listener warning. Please be advised that this episode contains content that may be disturbing to some listeners, including descriptions of violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Life upon the wicked stage ain't ever what a girl supposes.
I'm Jen.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Olivia.
And we are, in fact, three different people.
This podcast focuses on true crime under the spotlight of arts and entertainment. So grab your beverage of choice and settle in.
Places, ladies.
Here's our episode.
Welcome back, friends. Hi, everybody. Olivia brought wine today.
I have red wine. Ashley, what color do you have?
I have white this week. It's like sacrilege.
It is.
It's okay. I had white yesterday, and, well, I'm just going to stay on this kick for the weekend then, I guess. Today's episode is just an incredible intersection of magic and spiritualism and a little bit of spookiness, a little bit of true crime speculation. So it's really a little bit of everything, all wrapped into one episode. But we are talking today about Harry Houdini, the life and career and mysterious death of Harry Houdini.
Question mark.
So excited.
Mysterious ? Yeah, so we'll get into it. But this week's episode is, frankly, I think laden with drama, as we're going to unpack. Harry Houdini, both on and off the stage, was just an incredibly dramatic individual from the jump. But before we get into talking about Houdini himself, I want to give a little bit of context, because the context and the time in which Houdini's life and career takes place is really kind of key to understanding a lot about him and a lot about why he was such a big deal at the time and why he has remained this figure in the popular imagination, really. So slight sidebar, but it's a little bit important.
Context is key. We learned that last time.
Yeah, context is key. Yeah. So also, much like Jen gave us a lovely detour last time around to the Restoration period, but this is now the third of our 4 episodes that is in like late 19th, early 20th century. Like just
I love
a lot of industrial revolution here.
Yeah.
Just a lot of we're back, baby. Houdini is also a character who figures in the stage show Ragtime. He is a small part, much like Evelyn Nesbit. He's just sort of like this tangential side character and acts as a plot device. He has this whole bit in Ragtime where the little boy is telling him, "Warn the Duke." That is pure fiction for those of us just, who care about this whole, unpacking Ragtime piece of this. Spoiler alert, you're not going to hear about it today. It's not.
It's not Ragtime.
Go watch Ragtime, but that is just purely a fantasy for that musical. So, but anyway, my little context sidebar, I am obsessed with the movie The Prestige. So the movie The Prestige is, for those of you who don't know, this movie has been out for years, but this is like a favorite movie of mine. I don't know why. So the movie opens and closes with the same monologue as delivered by the incredible Michael Caine. And I have it here for us today because I feel like it really just sort of sets up well. Again, Houdini does not figure in the movie, but at the same time, there are a lot of elements of that they very much borrowed, if not from literal events, but from themes of Houdini's life and career. But the monologue is delivered by Michael Caine. I cannot do it as well, and I'm not even going to try to replicate his beautiful accent. I'll just read it out for us. So he says, every magic trick consists of 3 parts or acts. The first part is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary, a deck of cards, a bird, or a man. He shows you this object. Perhaps he asks you to inspect it to see if it is indeed real, unaltered, normal. But of course, it probably isn't. The second act is called the turn. The magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. And then here is the important part. He says, now you're looking for the secret, but you don't find it because, of course, you're not really looking. You don't really want to know. You want to be fooled. So that's like,
I
so in
forgot
the
about that
movie,
monologue. It's so good.
right? It's so good. It's
So
this
good.
incredible moment, and like this idea of, I read this incredible book, by the way, about Harry Houdini. It's out of print. I got this like, I found it. It's like a library book.
I was going to say that has
a.
a library barcode on the front. Is that from a library?
It was for sale on Amazon, but it was like, this was a library book, and now we're selling it. So I
Someone
got it, but
stole
it's-
that and never returned.
They sure did. But The Life and Many Deaths of Harry Houdini, a fabulous book. One of the opening chapters, it talks about how Houdini and other magicians famously say they are actually really wary of performing in front of children because children do not have a lot of preconceived expectations about just wanting to be entertained or knowing they're watching an act, because like they're so pure and wholesome. They are more likely to spot the simplicity of the trick and to be able to just sort of ferret out the truth. Yeah, as opposed to like adults who are like, adults want to be fooled. They're like, I want to escape from reality. I'm going to see a magic act. I don't want to know how it works. And kids are just like viewing it like on its face. And there is a scene in The Prestige, again, no spoilers, but like the character, Christian Bale's eventual wife, she's at the magic show with her nephew, and he figures out the trick. And Christian Bale's character is trying to sort of sell the trick, and the nephew is like, no, So I was thinking about that aspect of it. But yeah, so and it's funny because Houdini, and we'll get into this a little bit, but like Houdini did not ever have children, but at the same time, Houdini himself was very childlike throughout his life and sort of stayed very emotionally immature and like always wanted to be like the center of his own universe, and
Like
was like
J.M.
very much.
Barrie. Isn't that like J.M. Barrie?
Yes,
Very interesting.
yes.
Very interesting.
Yes, and in some ways, like that worked out really well for him. In other ways, it was like sort of surrounded yourself like with women to act as like mothers to you, and you never really had to grow up, and you could always just sort of stay the child. But going back to the beginning and getting into the context as laid out for us in The Prestige, but also in the life and times of Harry Houdini. So magic acts really gained significant popularity as a form of entertainment in the US and also in Europe, specifically in the mid to late 19th century. And there was a whole bunch of societal factors that contributed. So one of the big things was actually the Industrial Revolution.
Yep.
It brought about all these incredible technical advancements and a growing fascination with science and innovation. And it was all happening faster than it ever had before. So magic acts were like, oh, hey, we see that this is a thing in pop culture.
You're saying
borrow
magic acts. I thought you were
acts.
I thought you were saying magic X. And I was like, I don't know what that is.
It's
I was
mine.
like, oh, is it gender neutral magic X?
No. Acts. Sorry. ACTS.
Got
Acts.
it.
I will enunciate.
Got it.
Like
Magic
in a play.
acts. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So
moving on.
So audiences were so magicians and other performers, a lot of circus performers and people in that sort of touring vaudevillian type circuit, they incorporated these technological elements because people were curious about it, and they were curious about what was possible in the new industrial age as things were moving forward. The other thing that was happening at the same time was urbanization. So cities were really becoming a thing, big cities we think of today, where large populations of people were concentrated, living closely together. And at the same time, then you had big concentrations of people who also wanted entertainment. So theater and other performance venues really became a thing in urban spaces. So again, we talked about in our first episode, building spaces like Madison Square Garden and
right.
The establishment of the vaudeville circuit and Broadway as we know it today. A lot of that was all coming into fruition. So magicians actually then had dedicated spaces to perform for increasingly large audiences. The rise of the middle class was also becoming a thing, again, at the same time. Suddenly you didn't have just the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. You had this middle group really for the first time, with who had a little bit of extra money. They weren't aristocrats, but they did have money to spend on fun stuff. But the middle class was becoming a thing, seeking out stuff to do with their time and money. They're like, hey, we're done with the factory. The factory's closed on Saturday. What are we gonna do if with our afternoon? So the middle class specifically was really interested in seeking out different forms of entertainment. And then the final piece of this was advancements in transportation. So railways, steamships, again, allowing people, but also the performers to travel more extensively and to reach different regions or cities or countries. So you were no longer sort of just like stuck where you were. You were able to travel around to the cities as they were being developed, and sort of get this celebrity status in a way that just had never really been possible before. So there was this guy who was considered the father of modern magic, and his name was Jean-Eugene Robert Houdin. Just Houdin. That's it. No E, no I, just Houdin.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. He's actually considered the father of modern magic. He more had the zeitgeist in the early part of the early to mid 19th century. He was like the front runner to Houdini, but he set this sort of standard for magic as being respectable and a refined form of entertainment. It wasn't just some sort of freak show. He's like, no, I am a gentleman and I am going to perform this with elegance and panache, and I'm going to again adapt these elements of like technology and innovation into my act. So as vaudeville and variety shows were starting to develop and to become popular, magic was one of the like most popular things that was being featured. So there was like magicians, there were comedians, there were like singers, there were dancers, and like specializing in a particular type of act was like super common. And then there were dedicated venues for magic. But again, just having the large-scale venues, traditional theaters like we think of today, those being developed was what really, again, gave magicians and vaudeville this foothold. A lot of this was also about audiences being able to escape reality. Because, again, Industrial Revolution, some of that was amazing, and some of that was also equally horrifying.
Really hard.
So escapist entertainment, like magic, was really appealing because, you're facing like the horrors of like your factory job and like someone working next to you loses a hand. Whoopsies. And that was not uncommon.
No.
Oh, no.
You got another one, Timmy. Keep going.
Yeah,
Exactly. You don't get time off for this. How dare you?
So people were just like, oh my God, stuff is changing really fast. But people just wanted this respite from their daily routines. The last piece of this, sort of on a social, psychological level, was the 19th century specifically, towards the end, was seeing this rise of a movement called Spiritualism.
I love
it. Yeah. An interest in the supernatural. This was something that was coming into vogue for the first time. So magicians like Houdini, a lot of them capitalized on this trend. So mediums and spiritualists, a lot of them were very much like, I'm a performer, but then a lot of them were like, no, I am for real. They were trying to present themselves not like an act. I really can speak to the dead. And we're like, frankly, taking people's money or defrauding the public. It's so funny because the movie that came out, I think within a year or so of The Prestige was also The Illusionist. The Illusionist is interesting because The Illusionist, again, set in like the same era, but The Illusionist leans more into the spiritualist piece of it. But Harry Houdini, he is probably the most famous and enduring magician of all time. His name is synonymous with escape. So we're going to really talk about today, like his life, his career highlight, his obsession with the supernatural, some of his key relationships, and his mysterious death. Because frankly, it's not to ruin it, but once you hear about like how he probably died, to us in our 2024 minds, we're like, oh yeah, of course, that's very straightforward. But sort of like, why were people so obsessed with it at the time, and why is this still regarded as mysterious?
And there was like a rumor for like I thought growing up that he died in his big water tank trick. That's what I thought, and I had heard that that's how he died. And but that's not true.
In a daring escape act.
A daring escape act. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Houdini, he was actually born as Eric or Erich, like Ehrich, like there's various spellings. So he was born in Budapest in Hungary in 1874. It's interesting because later in his life, he would actually start saying that he had been born later in Wisconsin in the United States, and that his birthday was actually April 6th, not
That's
March
funny.
24th. And it was because, like, it was really sweet, but like his family had immigrated to the United States when he was 4 years old. And his family was Jewish, and they were fleeing Europe essentially for a lot of the reasons that people were at the time. Again, just a scene in Fiddler on the Roof and similar films of that kind. They're like, hey, we're going to just try immigrating to America for a better life for our family, for our children. So his mother, the dream, yes. It's very Five-O American Tale.
Five-O Goes
West.
Yeah. Because there are no cats in America. And the streets are paved with cheese. Yeah.
So
if only.
Okay. So they get here, and his mother was like just so happy to be able to essentially like raise her children in America. So it wasn't like a lie, but it was like the sweet thing that she used to say that Houdini was really born on like April 6th in Wisconsin, which is where they ended up settling because they already knew some people there. But after she died, he adopted that as like his official birthday, because that was what his mother liked to say, because it was when they were finally settled in the United States. That was his American birthday. So he started saying that he became a citizen, and he did regard himself like as very much an American. He had a little bit of an accent throughout his life because he was born in Hungary, and then very much later was like, no, I was definitely born in Wisconsin. And people were like, sure, Jan, but
I mean, he was 4. So
he
was raised here for sure.
He totally was. Yes. He had a whole bunch of siblings. He was the youngest of 5 boys, and then he had one younger sister. So actually,
as
no,
an
he
only
didn't
child, that terrifies me.
Actually, no, he didn't have a younger sister at all. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken about that. He just
only
it was
brothers?
just all. Yeah, it was a boy brigade.
A boy band. He had a boy band.
No, well, I was thinking of his sister-in-law actually. So the Weiss brothers, yeah. So it was Leopold, Nat, Dash, Wilhelm, and Eric. Yeah, so he ended up having his oldest brother married kind of out of the jump, and so he regarded his sister-in-law as his sister.
Okay.
Because she was very much a part of the family.
Yeah.
So he developed a very early interest in magic from a very young age, just from touring circus performers and, vaudevillians like starting to emerge. And he really was exposed to magic for the first time via the circus. And it was, a carnies like type setting, but magic was very much a part of those acts. So he performed his first magic trick at the age of 9. It was called the needle trick, in which he appeared to swallow sewing needles and thread and then would pull them out of his mouth threaded. So he would separately swallow needles and thread and then pull it out and the needle would be threaded.
Do you think like Mother Houdini was like that? She could never find her needles. She's like, I need to stitch up this damn sock. God damn it. Or is it the opposite where, like, when you're a kid and you put on puppet shows for your parents and you make them watch, and they're like, oh my God, I just want 5 fucking minutes to myself. And you're like, I made a puppet show. Was it like that? And she's like, oh, yay, Harry, Eric, yay.
So Olivia, we'll get into this, but his mother from an early age was like, this is my special boy. And of all, yes. So everything he did in his mother's eyes was perfect and wonderful. And again, he's got other siblings. He's got other brothers, but at least by his own account, he seems like he was like low key the favorite. And at the same time, he like worshipped his mother, like maybe to a slightly like, not like upsetting, but just like a little bit of an eyebrow raise. We'll get into this later. I've got some truly wild quotes.
A little man-child again. Yeah.
Again, the quintessential mama's boy, just Harry Houdini. So Olivia, his mother was probably like, no other magician has ever been as wonderful and talented as you at 9 years old with your needle trick.
She goes to like the mother's.
I have to darn these socks.
The mother's meetup. She's like, well, Eric just did his latest magic trick.
It's like, can we just get back to the chores? And she's like, not now. My son is performing. Like,
the floors can wait.
So exactly. So the guy Jean-Eugène Robert Houdini he read a book about him when he was very, very young. He got this book. Again, don't know how he got the book, but Robert Houdini, his approach to magic, again, making it more, I'll say like legit, like less sideshow and more like, I am a gentleman, I am a performer, I'm going to make this very dignified. And that like theatrical but dignified approach really resonated with young Harry Houdini, aka Eric Weiss at this time. And young Harry Houdini, aka Eric Weiss, he also really admired Robert Houdin's blend of science and magic specifically. Again, very much in vogue, coming into the times. So this guy was his idol. So he tried out different stage names, but eventually he's like, you know what? Why improve on perfection? So he started using the first name Harry, and then he just added an I to the end of the last name. So Houdini. So he was like, and it was meant to signify from a linguistic standpoint that he was like Houdini. So, I'm like Houdin. I am Houdini.
Houdinish. But
Yes.
instead of Houdinish, it was Houdini. Oh, I
Houdini.
like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. So he was like knowingly paying homage. He wasn't like, I'm not stealing your name. I'm saying like, I think you're incredible and I want to emulate you.
So if I want to be like Meryl Streep.
Streepy. Meryl Streepy. Great.
Fantastic.
So this was also a huge milestone for his, again, early career to, again, like rebrand himself for like to appeal to an American audience, because he's like, hey, I am adapting all things American. I am an American at this point. We're living in Wisconsin. So he spent his early years just, I'll just say hustling, just kind of to put it in a nutshell. He toured around. He also did not have success right away as a magician. He kind of had to figure stuff out. He had a bunch of other jobs that had nothing to do with magic. He worked for a tie maker, cutting out pieces to make neckties. He dropped out of school. Like he historically just like was a horrific like speller because he just did not complete his education in any like formalized fashion. He just was like, gotta get to work.
Way before spell check, friends.
Way before spell check.
Maybe he meant Harry Houdinish and he didn't know how to spell it, so it came out Harry Houdini.
It wasn't even, in fact, an honor at all. It was a spelling error. Olivia's like, what if this was less dignified?
What if it was actually just bad grammar?
What if, yeah.
From now on, I'm Jen Streepish.
Jen Streepish.
Meryl, we hope you're listening and you're delighted by this line of conversation.
I love you. Okay.
So his family actually his parents had moved to the United States for a better life for their family. His father actually was a rabbi. And
wow.
Yeah. Like, so they weren't just like, oh, yeah, we're kind of Jewish. They were Jewish. Like, father was a rabbi. It wasn't like, oh, we're Jewish in name only, but, we're into other stuff. It was like, y'all are Jewish. But his father, I read in this book, it talked about his father being a, quote, failed rabbi. And I was like, how do you fail as a rabbi?
I was just going to ask that. How do you fail being a rabbi?
How do you mess this up? And it's a little funny, but it's not really funny. So when they came to the United States, he was very much from the old school, from Europe, and what it meant to be a rabbi in Europe. And they get to Wisconsin, and they did find roots in a Jewish community in Wisconsin, and they already knew some people who lived there. But he was essentially not cool enough.
Wait, ready? He was rabbish.
Like, truly, he was just, they're like, no. And there was some other rabbi who I guess he was like taking over for, like in the town, like, hey, yeah, they're like, hey, this other one is, our old rabbi is retiring. But he was very much, for lack of a better term, like he was cooler. He was more like in step with the times.
Wow.
And he was more like modern, like he had more like contemporary sensibilities. And so you get this person then coming in from the old world. And it was like, hey, we've had a millennial rabbi, and all of a sudden we're getting a boomer rabbi. And they're like, no.
They're like, we can't do this. It's like the current like pastors that are like doing the backflips on stage, and they're like, just call me Pastor Joe. Like,
exactly.
And then you get someone.
No.
Yeah, you can't go back from that once you've had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly, my knowledge of the Jewish faith comes from The Nanny. And they always had cool rabbis, so I get it.
So he
Shout
was
out
not
Fran
cool.
Drescher. He wasn't cool.
He wasn't cool, and it's so sad. So like, he really did try, but again, like it's hard enough to adapt to a new country, let alone to be told essentially like, hey, your way of doing your job, like we don't want it. So the community built their new synagogue. They're like, hey, we've raised like the funds, and we're gonna build our like beautiful new space. Oh, and P.S. we're low-key just firing you. So they fired him, and they were just like, we're going to our new building, and we're not coming.
You're not invited.
The last 10 years of his father's life, he was just unemployed. So the family was really struggling because, again, mom sure wasn't able to go to work. So Houdini is a teenager at this point. So he's dropped out of school, and he and his brothers were all essentially just doing whatever jobs like, they could, and were sending money back to try to support their parents.
Are they still in Wisconsin?
So the parents are in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then Houdini is touring around, and it's a little money which came first. It sounds like he ultimately made his way to New York.
Okay.
And then this was also sort of a last-ditch effort to find his dad work. Because he's like, hey, I'm in New York. I'm working. Seems like there's a whole lot of Jewish people here.
So
because
much.
largest city in the world, like largest
Queens.
Jewish population
Yeah.
in the United States at that point. So he's like, get in here, and tried to help them find like a community and roots there. It seems like his dad still did not succeed in his career, even
They're
in
like,
New York.
Probably depressed.
Dad, can you
I know.
sing? Because there's a new show on Broadway that I
Called
think you'd
Fiddler.
be perfect for.
If I were a rich man.
Also, everything I know about Fiddler on the Roof came from The Nanny. Just a random side note.
What?
I'll do it behind the scenes later.
So Houdini's dad so they're in New York now. The parents are still really struggling to make it, but Houdini really started performing professionally, we'll say, as a legit, I am making my money now as a magician.
I got money.
I've got some money. I'm not cutting the ties anymore in 1891. So he was not successful from the jump. Nevertheless, he persisted. So he was also performing with his brother, Theodore, who went by the nickname Dash, was like his partner.
So cool.
I don't know where you get Dash
Dash.
from Theodore, but sure. Yeah, it was his nickname. So
It's like
whatever you
William
hear-
and Bill. William and Bill, I
Yeah,
don't get it.
William and
Theodore
Bill,
and
Theodore and Dash, yeah. So that was like his assistant was Dash. When they're like, my lovely assistant, it was actually his brother. And
Always wanted to be a magician's assistant. I'm sorry. I have to say that real quick. It's a dream of mine. Continue.
so
There's still
he's-
time.
Yeah.
So he's performing, and he's mostly based in New York, and again, super, super close with the mom, like maybe to overwhelming degree.
Yeah.
And it's speculated actually. So around this time, he meets his wife, Bess.
Okay.
So Houdini, by his own admission, he's like, I have no game. I am no ladies' man. I got nothing. And it's the author of this book I read really speculates, had Houdini not been in a situation where he was actually away from his mother and essentially married on impulse, if the circumstances had been different, would he ever have even been able to persuade himself to get married?
Oh, wow.
Because to put another woman above, to even consider another woman in any fashion, romantically or otherwise, over his mom, it was sort of like a fluke. And the author of this
Wow.
book, she likened it to sort of, he was very impulsive sometimes, but it was almost like, I'm just going to go for it. Just hold your nose and just like dive on in. And then it was like, oh, too late now. But would it have even happened if it didn't happen this way? So I want to read the section from this book because this is wild. To say his marriage was sudden is an understatement. Houdini gave an account of it, emotionally true, if not factually inaccurate, in a magazine. One day, I was hired to give an exhibition at a children's party in Brooklyn. And at the close, a little girl, about 16, said to me very bashfully, I think you're awfully clever. And then with a blush said, I like you. How much do you like me? And I said, enough to marry me? We had never seen each other before, and she nodded. So after talking the matter over, we were married.
Wait,
That's
hold
his
on.
account.
So basically, he did the do you like me, yes or no?
Circle yes or no.
Circle
literally,
yes or no,
yes.
and it ended up in a marriage.
So, so
Poor
here's
guy
the real.
still working children's parties too.
So here's the
Yikes.
real deal. That is his account. That's
Okay.
his like press account. How it really happened was Bess Houdini's own recollections are different. They're scarcely less abrupt. According to her, Houdini had arranged to give a show at her high school. Wilhelmina Beatrice Rayner, known as Bessie or Bess, she was 18, and she persuaded her mother, who thought all theater wicked. Shout out, wicked. Yes, her mother thought all theater was wicked, but her mother was like, okay, I guess you can go to this. You're already at school, may as well, kind of thing. So Bess is sitting in the front row. And I guess like Houdini had a trick where he like had like some liquid and he like, spilled it, and it spilled on her dress. And he felt like terrible. He was like, oh no, I spilled on this audience member. But she was like smitten and felt like they had this connection. And so her mother was he was just like, oh my gosh, like not only am I at this wicked magic show, but like my daughter's dress got ruined. So Houdini, and a totally like, again, he didn't seem to have much game by his own admission, but I guess he found out where she lived and he replaced the dress and brought it to her house and was like,
That's
hey,
a game. That's game. right
Well,
there.
this is the
a lot of
most-
game. If you bring
this
me a
is-
dress, I'm yours.
Yeah.
This is the most game he's going to have.
Okay.
So his mother made it for Bess because like where's he going to
Wow.
get a dress? He couldn't buy one. So
Right.
he had his mother make the dress and he then brought it over to Bess's house and was like,
Bess's
I'm sorry.
house.
So the book says, when Houdini brought it around, Bess was thrilled and ran upstairs and put it on and then slipped out with Houdini while her mother was busy elsewhere.
What a
Houdini
floozy.
suggests, what a floozy, right? So Houdini suggested they go to Coney Island, and Bess had never been anywhere on her own before. Again,
my
like mom's like, no, the world is like sketchy. Like,
And
you're
that's
not
so
leaving the
interesting
house.
too. I mean, I know nowadays at 16, people
18. She's
go
18.
play-
Yeah.
Oh, she's 18
But yeah.
now.
Yeah,
But
she's
still, like that's
Yeah.
The mom's like, 2 words, Evelyn Nesbit. You're staying in that
polar bear rug. You're s-
van.
Also, like, this is so the
See?
opposite. Like, Evelyn Nesbit's mother was
Auga.
just like, was like clearly like negligent, as we discussed. Like, this woman is like the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
She's overly protective. So they're at a Coney Island, and Bess is worried, and she's like, oh my gosh. It's like Rapunzel. She's like, I've never been out on my own, and she starts to get scared. Like,
She's like,
what if
"Little
my mom
pants
finds
attack."
out? Yeah, so she's having a meltdown, and Houdini says, if you were my wife, they wouldn't care to punish you. And so Bess, not unnaturally, she was sort of just like, wait, what? What do you mean if I was your wife? And then she was just like, I guess, I mean, that's cool. So they literally just walked to a secondhand jewelry store and tried on wedding rings. And Houdini didn't have enough money to buy one, but Bess had some change on her. So she bought their rings.
No.
They acquired a license and they found someone to marry them, and they got married on June 22nd of 1894.
I don't like
so
this
cute.
because it's like, first of all,
Oh, you don't love it? I think it's cute.
You're not feeling it?
No, he's, hey, babe, tired of your curfew? Let's
He's
get
like
hitched.
20. He's
And
like
then-
20 and she's like 18.
And then they,
So
so she's like, I'm so tired of my parents telling me when I have to be home. And he's like, okay, let's go to this jewelry store. And then they get there and he's like, oh, babe,
no, I
I
forgot my
forgot
wallet."
my wallet. Oh, damn. And she's like, it's okay. I got a $5. Like, what?
well,
Houdini,
this is their,
that is an illusion.
See,
An
and I'm just like, oh, cool,
illusion.
equal right.
No.
well, to Jen's point, it does seem very much like there was, at least from certainly for the times, the power dynamic was pretty well matched because, again, this was the most game this man ever had in his life. He was so shy and uncomfortable around women in general. Later, when he tried to have a movie career that we're not going to get into because we don't have time.
There's no
But
time.
he had a 4-second silent movie career, and it didn't go well mostly because he could not bring himself to kiss or touch a female co-star. He was so
guys.
uncomfortable. He was like,
Oh,
I
Harry.
can't do it. Like he was
Harry,
just
perks of the job, man.
no, he wouldn't do it. So she took over from the brother, Dash, who had been
Okay.
like his, sort of like stage manager, like assistant, partner, and she became. Yeah, she was like, I'm the assistant now. I'm running the business side of this.
I love
and
it.
really like helped
Killing
ramp
it.
up his eventual success. So
Okay.
she had some control in there.
I like her.
But she also, it's hysterical that her mother is like, oh, man. She had not only married a magician, but also a Jew because she was Catholic. And so it was like a double whammy. And the mother was like devastated. So they had a second wedding ceremony later, got married in like the Catholic church. And the mom was like, it's still not good enough. Like,
Guys,
mom was, I know,
It's
it was
not
so
a
fraught.
big deal.
She's like, this
was
is
so
a little
fried.
bit
Calm
better,
down.
but you're still burning in hell.
Still putting hell for all eternity.
There was some speculation without any evidence. Maybe they were just infertile. Maybe they just, one or both, couldn't have kids. Not sure. But there was speculation that he was actually impotent. His father died, and like his mother, he kept the mom with them or close by. So he was essentially living with both his wife and his mother, like in the same household.
So I feel like he could have either become a magician or a serial killer, and he went for magician, and I think that's the
Thank
wise
you,
choice.
Harry, for being a musician.
Yeah.
Or,
Well-
I mean, musician.
magician, musician,
Magician.
It's the wine.
Hey friends, Jen here, and we hope you're enjoying this episode of Life Upon the Wicked Stage. Just a few quick reminders. If you're looking for any of the visuals that we've mentioned in this or any episode of the podcast, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Wicked Stage Pod or Facebook at Life Upon the Wicked Stage. If you want more, please join our Patreon by searching the Wicked Stage Podcast. There you'll find ad-free episodes, videos of our recordings, mini-sodes, behind-the-scenes content, giveaways, and so much more. And the most important side note, if you like the show, please give us a nice rating wherever you listen. It sounds silly, but it's still the best way to get the word out and support us in this crazy podcast world. Well, lights are blinking, intermission's over, so grab those snacks and another drink and enjoy the rest of the show.
In one of these letters, I mean, they were married for 30 years. He and his wife were married for 30 years. And he wrote, the month before he died, he signed a letter, his like little sign off. It was, "Your husband until after the curtain rings down on our lives, even to the crack of doom."
Okay, drama. Jesus Christ, Harry. Dial it back. It's like,
it's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Okay,
It's a lot.
hold on. Like, so
Okay.
even, men out there. Okay, hold on. Side note. Like, okay,
hold on.
we would love to have a really sweet Hallmark card, okay? And if you even write a couple rhyming sonnets, okay? But like,
Just a few sonnets. No big deal.
dial
Shakespeare
it
did
back, like the crack of doom instead of Harry. Calm down. That's too
I
much.
just snorted. It was so funny.
So all of this to say, even if he and his wife were not able to have marital relations
what?
in the traditional
He
sense,
probably, every time they tried, he probably started crying. And he's like, "I love you so much." But then just started crying. Which, like,
Olivia?
listen, once in a while, fabulous, beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Every time, like,
It sounds like he had some, if not a physical hang-up, he had some emotional hang-ups on this. And also, he talked about his wife as this ideal of what a woman was, but also sort of always wanted her to be 18 and innocent forever in his mind. So I think it was, again, I have this sweet, wholesome, pure idea of women and love and what this is. And again, we don't have any hard evidence on whether this was psychological or physical, maybe a little bit of both. Who knows? Maybe
It's
everything.
why therapy is so important.
Therapy is so important. My God. Yeah. Harry Houdini would have really, I think, benefited from therapy in a lot of ways, which we're going to get into in just a second here. But so he's married, he's living with the wife and the mom, he's writing really dramatic and grandiose love letters to the wife thrice on the daily, but he's also finding time to finally become a breakout star in the magic circuit. So in 1899, in his spare time. In 1899, he has his first big success. So it's okay, it's happening. And this is how he became known as the Handcuff King. That was his signature.
Hold up. The Handcuff King who can't get it on in the bedroom. What?
Olivia, I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you what the history says.
This is just what the book said, okay?
I'm just telling you what's up.
I did not expect this week to go like this.
Well, here we are.
Here we are.
nevertheless.
All right.
No, not us.
So he starts out with this standardized handcuff escape, and it evolves over time. So there's multiple versions of this, and maybe we'll detail all of these, in a post or something like that. Maybe along with someone. He has a lot of. This man loved a fabulous photo shoot. I mean, so many incredible photos of this man in various, costumed, staged, grandiose states.
That's so true. Because you say Harry Houdini, I know exactly what he looks like.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's iconic. Yeah. He loved a photo shoot and loved it a dramatic photo shoot, by the way. Loved the theatrical. So he had the standard handcuff escape in which he would challenge a local police department to handcuff him with their standard police handcuffs. And then he would just escape in seconds to minutes in front of a live audience. He specifically then had a variation on this, which was jail escapes, where then he would also be handcuffed but locked in a jail cell by the authorities and escape the jail cell. And this would get a lot of media attention.
Sure.
So this is the handcuff, but also the escape piece. So then he introduced a underwater handcuff escape. So again, handcuffed. Then he was submerged in water or in some sort of sealed container or was tied up and then jumped into a river, and he would escape underwater.
Right.
So there was an element of time of escape before you drown, which is hey, kind of just upping the ante, constantly upping the ante. I think, like, not to ruin it, but a lot of these escapes were rooted in either having like trick cuffs or in having concealed keys and picks like on his person. He had a milk can escape where he would be, again, handcuffed and then placed inside like a giant milk can, which was a huge, many gallons of milk, but it could be sealed on top. But he was a short king. He was a small guy.
How
so
tall
he would,
was he? Do you know?
Oh my God, I don't know. Somebody give us a Google.
You keep talking.
I'm gonna say he's. I'm gonna say he's 5. I'm gonna say he's 5'5", but that's.
Wait, this is fun. I'm gonna guess 5'2", just for fun.
How tall, Jen?
5'6".
Oh,
So he's an inch taller than me. Taller than I thought, honestly.
But still a short king.
Yeah, still a short king. He would have been on an apple box in Hollywood. It's fine.
There's also like there's indication that he may or may not have been a semi-contortionist. That's like sort of asterisk, like from his younger. He was flexible, especially like for a man. But then we get into this milk can and handcuffed, and then they would fill it with water from the top. So not only did he have to escape before he drowned, but he also had to escape the milk can.
He was in there first. Then they put the water in. And
okay.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yes.
Okay.
Like very intense. So then he had something called the metamorphosis trick. And this was not strictly a handcuff escape, but it would be Houdini and an assistant, mostly his wife after they got married. And he would then be like locked into a trunk, and the trunk would be bound and tied and chained and very elaborate. No one's getting out of here. And they would put a screen in front of it. And then almost immediately the screen would be ripped away by Houdini. Oh my gosh, how is he on the outside? Well, who's on the inside? And then they would elaborately unpack the trunk, and then the assistant would be inside. So they switch places like before your very eyes. I found, we have to put this, at least the text from this in a post, but I found an ad in this book.
Oh my God.
For the metamorphosis trick. And it's a picture of him and his wife. Like they're like headshots. And it says the Houdinis. And then it says metamorphosis. And then it has a description of the trick. But then it says executed in full glare of the light and is without a single doubt the greatest mystery of the present times. But then, this is the best part. And this is where I'm screaming. There's a little notification below. And it says, all caps in bold, important information. Any and all acts, all caps, like this or similar to this on the rapid exchange order, all caps, are copies and imitations of this act. And this is positively the original and only metamorphosis.
They're like TM.
Yes. Like, they're like, this is ours. We're the real one. Anyone else doing any version of this is a charlatan. Like, this is
There's one metamorphosis and it's us. Yep.
Exactly.
I love it.
Again, some of his other signature tricks, again, like I said earlier, bridge jumps. He would be chained and tied up, like throw himself off a bridge and have to get undone before he drowned in the river below. He escaped from like a prison van, like a variation on the prison. The prison escape, like in transport. They're like, we're driving down the road and somehow you escaped and we arrived at the destination and you weren't there anymore. And then he did a mirror handcuff exchange, in which he escaped from a specially designed set of handcuffs called mirror handcuffs. It took a locksmith 5 years to design. This was like a custom prop. And he escaped from them in front of a large audience, solidifying his fame. I don't have in my notes exactly what that consisted of, but it was something along lines where he was looking in a mirror while escaping the handcuffs, and then somehow he handed the handcuffs into the mirror.
What?
Yeah, and then the reflection was like handcuffed, but then he was free, or like some version of that. I love it. I didn't put it in my notes. I'm sorry.
Theater
like Chris Angel, eat your heart out. Right?
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. So besides his whole handcuff, again, Handcuff King, but he also was known for something called the Chinese water torture cell.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
This is what I thought he died doing, I think.
Okay.
But he didn't. He didn't. It was like a rumor that he died doing this.
Spoiler alert, he did not.
Spoiler alert, no.
This is in 1912, was when he introduced this trick, and this was like a huge showstopper. So his ankles would be locked into like these stocks, essentially, and he was then hoisted into the air and lowered headfirst, so upside down, and his ankles are locked into a water-filled chamber that had glass or something in front of it, so
you could see it.
See him.
It was like a
this.
fish tank kind of thing.
Again, not dissimilar to the Prestige, except that his ankles are locked in. So then the top is secure, multiple locks, so he can't just pop out. So once he's submerged, they would then drop a curtain around it, like on the Prestige, so it would obscure how he was escaping, and he would work himself free from the restraints. And a lot of these escapes, it should be noted, he was employing not only just skill with okay, I got to find the key I planted somewhere on myself, but his escapes employed a lot of physical agility and breath control and strength and contortion. In addition to just the mechanism of the trick, he was in incredible physical shape, and a lot of these escapes were actually really physically taxing. So after a few minutes, Houdini would emerge from behind the curtain free and unharmed, and the audiences would be amazed. But it was his acts were really known for this combination of apparent risk and then also quick and skillful escape. That was what was so exciting, because again, the implication was sort of hey, if you don't escape, you're gonna die.
You're gonna die.
Yeah. It was oh, I pulled a rabbit out of the hat. Whoops, I botched it. It was the stakes were much higher.
It's the original reality TV.
Yeah, absolutely. So his top 5 most famous tricks were the Chinese water torture cell, any variation of his Handcuff King dealio, the metamorphosis trick, the milk can escape specifically, and then something called the Vanishing Elephant, which he performed at the Hippodrome Theater in New York in 1918, and he made a live elephant named Jenny disappear from a cabinet. And the cabinet was positioned on stage, the curtain is drawn around, and after a few moments of suspense, the curtain was opened to reveal that the elephant had vanished.
Where did Jenny go?
Where did I go? Without ruining the trick, Jenny just went under the stage.
Okay.
But at least I had my day as an assistant, kind of.
Houdini obviously just loved a dramatic reveal. He was also, throughout his career, he was really known for over-the-top publicity. I found some really hysterical photos in here, sort of the original flash mob. He would hire people to have signs being Houdini this way and carry them down the street parade style. He had these elaborate exhibit. There's this photo. He has the box he's going to escape from later, and he has all this signage around it. And on a poster of the men escaped, it says bold letters at the bottom, failure means a drowning death. Everything very
so dramatic.
Super dramatic, super hyped. He knew how to run some good PR. But like I said earlier, he did venture into silent films a little bit, mostly again surrounding some sort of escape, just in film. He was not a good actor, as we've established. He had no chemistry with a leading lady, really not story driven in any way, but it was hey, I'm going to escape, but on film this time. He also had a brief foray into aviation, ? He became one of the first people to fly in a plane to Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Just
really?
A weird footnote. Yeah, just a weird footnote. I was
terrifying.
Wait, he flew, he got his pilot's license, he flew, or he flew with
there he goes. He flew in
Houdini's first flight.
Is it in 1909? It shows him flying his first flight in Germany, I guess, when he was over in Europe, and he was a plane, sign me up. That feels scary and dramatic.
I'll escape from it. It's fine.
Yeah, he flew to Australia in one of those little planes in 1910. Yeah,
My God.
Like you do.
I don't like flying in a regular plane. Jesus.
Right.
Imagine essentially flying in a kite to Australia. So all that to say, just a super theatrical and dramatic career, but he toured for 3 decades. His peak years were between 1910 and 1920. That was the height of his fame. And he toured right up until his death, which when he died, he was 52 years old. So not that old, but he just, again, his career, he was popular himself, but he also contributed to just the popularization of other magicians and escape acts and raising the standard of what a stage magician should be. So now we're going to get into the supernatural. So the spiritualist movement, for those who don't know, this really rose to prominence in the mid-19th century, and it was a religious and social movement, and it believed just in the possibility of communicating with spirits or the dead. So it actually originated in the United States, which I did not know this, and spread to Europe, but this was just something people really bandwagoned on. And it was this idea of we could get guidance and wisdom from people, like via the afterlife. So of course, like mediums and, who would like conduct a seance for you. Like this became a business, and this was like a business opportunity. So the movement was really rooted in a desire to find comfort and answers about life after death. And again, like we talked about earlier, particularly during this period of societal upheaval and higher mortality, and people gathering in cities in a way that like community was changing and society was really being reshaped by events like the Civil War or the Industrial Revolution. And there was a lot of like, death and loss and uncertainty. So this was offering solace and comfort to a lot of people, but it was also drawing skepticism and criticism because people were like, hey, you're also making money on this. And are you capitalizing on like people's pain and suffering? And like, are you exploiting grieving people? So in one way, you're like, oh, that's kind of nice. And on the other hand, it's like, well, are you taking advantage of people's hope? So Houdini had a really complex relationship with this, and it began with genuine interest, and it ended with becoming an active debunker. So he was attracted to, he heard about it, just in the zeitgeist, and he was like, oh, that's like interesting. And again, feels dramatic, feels like something I'd be into. But it was really catalyzed by his mother's death. So his mother died in 1913, and she passed away from complications due to a stroke, and he was not there. He was touring in Europe. She was 72 years old, so by the standards of, by the standards of the day, she had a really long life. But again, he was so close to her, he frequently referred to her as his best friend. Meanwhile, Bess is like, I'm right here.
But she's like, I'm in the magic show with you.
I'm literally right here.
And okay, fine.
He's like, I love no other woman like my mother. And he looks to his right, and she's like, really?
Truly.
Rolling her eyes,
So he had this quote. I had to write it down because, oh my gosh. He said, no one ever had a sweeter mother. She was my best friend, my queen, my everything.
Oh, that's not right. Something's wrong. Something is wrong.
This is where I'm like,
magician or serial killer. You're so right.
I was like, oh, you love your mother. And also, this is a lot. So there's an entire chapter in this book dedicated to his mother's death. And I just have to read a couple of sections from you because it's wild. So when hold on, I need to find it because it's too good. It's too good to pass up. This is not funny, but it's a little funny. So he's not there.
We'll make it funny.
He's not there when she dies, so she's had a stroke. He doesn't find out because, again, communication. He ultimately finds out via telegram, but I think it's like 3 or 4 days after she's actually died by the time like the news makes it to him.
Texting doesn't exist, dear listeners.
Yep. So he does a show, and he's like holding court and like talking to the press like after his performance. As he talked, he was handed a cable. He opened it, read it, and fell unconscious to the floor.
He fainted.
Fell to the floor. And then when he came to, he lay on the ground sobbing, Mama, my poor dear little mother. And the press just left. And they were like, oh no, like we should.
Awkward.
This is awkward. Like this man is on the floor. And they're like, should we go?
Wow.
Like,
should we stay? Is he okay?
So they talk about this period. He describes this period in his life, the couple of years after his mother died. He talks about it as a half-life.
Wow.
And even his wife, Bess, wrote, I think in like some correspondence, that just like the spark and like the joy and like the vigor, because he was just like really like a workaholic, and he was just like go, like more, and was just always like, pushing everything to the max, and just like there was always like, new illusions, and like, he worked hard, like he hustled hard. And it sounds like he really kind of became catatonic during this time and just was not dealing with grief well. So he started, I guess I didn't know much about this, but in the Jewish faith, there is or was something to like the whole family being buried together in a family plot situation. So I guess they already had a family plot. But he was like, no, it's not enough for us to just like have a family plot. His father was already deceased. One of his brothers was already deceased. But now that mom was gone, he was like, I am going to dial this up. And he designed a tune for the whole family to ultimately go into, like a sarcophagus situation, but a huge one for the whole family. It was carved out of single blocks of stone.
Wow.
And it weighed more than 50,000 pounds, and 1,000 tons of Bury, Vermont granite were used in the setting and building of this. There's a photo of it in this book. It's wild, but he just became obsessed.
Wow.
Right? He became like building this tomb, and it's really sad. Like he would go, like before the tomb was done, he would go to like her grave, and he would just like lay on the dirt daily and just like cry and just like lay on the ground. So it's like, oh, sweetie. But like this went on for a really, really long time. So he is overwhelmed by grief, to say the very least. And he was desperate to have any sort of contact with her. So, hey, spiritualism is like, we got you. So this really kicked off his effort to communicate with her from beyond the grave. So he was like, okay, let me, look into this, because maybe this is a way for me to communicate with my mother. And as he got into it, he really quickly discovered that most of these mediums were employing tricks similar to his magic act and like these illusions. And he's like,
not this trick. I do this trick.
Because he knew. Right. So he was like super disturbed by this, and he was like, what the fuck? Like he had just known about it, like, more in the background of, oh yeah, this is a movement that's going on. But upon closer examination, he's like, oh, you're just deceiving people and exploiting grief like mine and vulnerability. But fortunately, like he had enough understanding of the mechanisms to be like, oh, you're just using the old blah, blah, blah. Because like magicians, it's a fraternity. And even if you don't do that trick, like, you know how other people's tricks work.
Yeah.
So
you don't tell.
Right. You don't tell each other secrets. But again, he was like, oh, I see what's up. So he really started to scrutinize the spiritualist claims like rigorously. Okay, this is kind of funny. He would get into disguise, and there's a photo of him in one of his disguises. We'll have to post it, because I'm like, oh my God, it's not even that good, but it's actually kind of funny. It's like a salt and pepper toupee, and he's got like glasses and like a cane, and he's like, I'm just an old man here for the seance. And he would then
Gotta look for my old wife Louise.
Yes, and then he would like reveal himself mid-seance and like, debunk the seance and be like, no, like, yes. So he would do this, and then he would reveal like their methods. Some people were like, oh my gosh, thank you. And other people were like, well, that may all be well and good, but we still want to believe.
You're a magician. You don't tell the truth either, so...
Right. Well, he actually wrote a book, A Magician Among the Spirits, in 1924 that detailed specifically his findings and trying to educate people about charlatans in the spiritualist movement. He was invested.
He was so invested.
Yeah. Did he ever meet anyone who he could not prove was a fraud?
No.
Oh.
I have a whole no. I had a whole list of sort of like famous people he defrauded, which we won't get into, but it's really interesting because during this time he had actually struck up a really close friendship with what I call his bestie, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Who wrote the Sherlock Holmes
right
that character.
I'm so glad.
So this is sort of like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild, like what a turn. So they had this friendship, but then they subsequently fell out over spiritualism because they clashed. So they'd met in 1920, and they had like sort of a mutual respect. It was one famous dude at the turn of the century to the other. And, Houdini admired his literary achievements, specifically the Sherlock Holmes series, and Arthur Conan Doyle was like, hey, you're an incredible magician and performer. And they had this mutual interest initially in the supernatural. And this was just something they liked to talk about. But when Houdini's mother died, Arthur Conan Doyle was like a staunch believer in spiritualism. And he was convinced that it provided evidence of the afterlife and that this was real. Arthur Conan Doyle was like, nope, I am a believer. Had the faith of a child about all this. And Houdini, as his skepticism was growing, he would, like I said, he would go in disguise to the seance, and he would reveal the trickery, and it was just sort of doing this all very publicly too. So Arthur Conan Doyle, he thought Houdini's magic act was maybe also some proof, and maybe that he also had some supernatural abilities to escape, because I guess Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wasn't a magician, so Houdini wasn't probably telling him, hey, here's how my trick really works. He wouldn't confess the secrets of like the magic act to him. So it's like, even though they were friends, he wouldn't necessarily say, oh, by the way, here's how I did that trick you just saw.
Right.
So Arthur Conan Doyle is sitting over there like, well, you must have some supernatural powers if you escape from that milk can. And Houdini's like, bro, no, that's not what's up.
Spoiler alert, watch The Prestige.
Right.
So their pivotal fallout came in 1922 during a seance conducted by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife, Lady Jean Conan Doyle. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife is, I guess, a dabbling medium, ?
Interesting.
So his wife, and this is where I'm like, oh, sweetie, don't do that. She claimed during the seance to be channeling Houdini's mother and wrote out like 5 pages of what's called automatic writing, where you're like, yep, I'm in touch with the spirits. And you just start like writing like whatever, like stream of consciousness, like whatever they're saying to you, except she wrote it all in English. And Houdini's mother, remember, had never learned English. And so Houdini's like, I am unconvinced. My mother mostly spoke German and Yiddish.
Yep.
And like, she would certainly have never, she couldn't write in English and she would have never communicated that way. So he was like, this is a fraud. But he didn't immediately, I guess, flip the table from the room because he was like, this is my friend's wife.
Right.
But that was the turning point where he was like, oh, we are not on the same page about this at all. And also that was kind of weird of your wife to do that.
Yeah.
So just as Houdini was like exposing different people, their correspondence and their friendship, it grew really contentious. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle accused Houdini of being closed-minded. And Houdini insisted on the need for rigorous proof and just was like, I'm going to keep exposing the fraud. And Houdini was quoted as saying, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has been hoodwinked and deceived by so many charlatans and fakes that he has come to believe that all things are possible. So their friendship did not survive this, and it really just ultimately disintegrated. They were like, "This, we can't get past this." But despite their falling out, they both continued to respect each other as, professionals in their fields. But they were no longer besties.
Yeah, they didn't hang out anymore.
Yeah, they were like, this isn't gonna work. So again, he spent like a significant period of time. He was still touring and performing as a magician, but it was like, this was almost, it seemed like, half his time was then spent like debunking like these different like mediums and psychics and people.
Yeah,
and
it's like he made it his quest.
Yeah. Like after his mother died, he was like, these people need to be stopped.
Yeah.
So and he came out with that book in 1924. So we're going to get into the events leading up to his death because, spoiler alert, we're now entering 1926 and the clock is running down here. So in 1926, Houdini's health was actually deteriorating due to several factors. And I wrote for this section a little header called, Could Self-Care Have Saved Harry Houdini?
Oh, question mark? Everybody?
Because physical strain and exhaustion may have actually played a really big role in his death. So, like we talked about earlier, his show, like his escape acts, were really physically demanding. And they were these feats of like physical endurance. Like he's holding his breath, he's escaping underwater, like he had to be really strong. Like this was a lot. And again, this is like, he's been touring for 30 years. Like that's a lot of just wear and tear on the body.
Yeah.
And he had this rigorous schedule and he was just always pushing himself to the limit. Like he was the ultimate overachiever and he was just like, nope, go, like more, like, keep on touring, keep on hustling, not good about a break, not good about any sort of rest or recovery. So he had a lot of just muscle pain and joint pain. And again, like he's in his 50s now, like he's not 25. Like you don't even recover as quickly as you would when you were younger. But he was doing like multiple shows a day. He was traveling extensively. And he just really, at a certain point, even before anything was sort of like super red flag, had people close to him, like his wife, described as chronic fatigue and a weakened immune system. So then he was more susceptible to illness.
Yeah.
He also had a reputation for resilience as a performer because it was like, he's always escaping these like death-defying situations. So that was also part of his persona. Like, I can't be seen to be weak. I am superhuman.
The show must go on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The toxic show must go on. And people like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle were like, well, you must be supernatural. And he's like, no, I'm just a guy. But also, this is part of my shtick. And so I've got to let people believe in my superhuman
This
abilities.
is my brand. Yeah.
This is my brand. So he had this ability, at least on the outside, to endure pain. So as a result, though, he would also ignore just like warning signs from his own body and would frequently perform when he was injured or unwell. So it's just like, sir, self-care, learn about it. It's good for you. We promise. So in the months leading up to his death, he really was sort of complaining about just, I would say, like a buildup of like discomfort and pain, but would still choose to just press on with performances. So super run down.
Yeah.
And again, observers and people, you know, friends and acquaintances noted, again, before anything actually happened, but they're like, hey, you look really worn down.
Yeah.
Like, you don't look good. Yeah. And he was like, he'd been super like energetic in his younger years. Again, like he's doing all this press. He's like doing like wild publicity stunts.
Yeah.
And again, they're just like, hey, dude, you seem really run down. You're doing all the spiritualist stuff. Like you've been grieving, not well. And
Take a breath.
You know, take a breath, take a break.
Yeah.
And he was like, absolutely not. So on October 22nd of 1926, he's performing in Montreal. And he was punched in the abdomen by a university student named J. Gordon Whitehead. So not a lot is known about this guy. He really wasn't anyone, and he really faded very quickly from obscurity.
Was he just an audience member?
Just a guy.
Okay.
Just a
part of the act.
It was So it was a backstage visit.
Right?
So yeah, it was like a VIP meet, and you know, just Houdini's chatting with people after the show. And this guy, Whitehead, because I guess this was something, again, Houdini's like, I am a Superman. I am very strong.
Yes.
And this was something he'd done for years.
Yes, I'd heard that before. It was something he always did. Yeah.
He was like, you can punch me and I won't even feel anything.
I won't even know I'm
so,
Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a bit. And he would do this just like all the time, like on the street, casually. This was like a known thing. It was like, oh yeah, you can punch Houdini. Like he can withstand anything.
It's
fun.
fun.
So backstage, this guy, Whitehead, asked Houdini if it was true if he could withstand any punch to the stomach. Now, here's the catch. Houdini was lying down, he was reclining on a couch because he had a fractured ankle. So he had just done a show with a broken ankle.
He's
Houdini,
doing
my man. Self-care.
And he's doing a meet and greet while laying like on a
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Listen, so he's
All
like
right.
reclining on a chaise.
If we ever have a meet and greet scheduled and one of us has a broken ankle,
Also, though,
maybe we're gonna cancel it. And
But,
don't-
like,
yeah,
maybe
don't touch us. We're gonna
doing a
push you
meet
over
and
there.
greet on a chaise lounge kind of sounds pretty
That sounds
fabulous.
great. Don't touch us though.
Yeah,
I mean,
In
right.
general.
Fabulous
Okay.
in theory, but
Right.
yeah, it's like maybe do less.
Right.
So before Houdini could like, brace himself, because again, usually it's like, hey, you're standing up and like you engage your muscles, and there's like a
those
whole
abs, baby.
yeah. But he's like literally prostrate, and so before he can prepare himself, the guy's just like cool and punches him multiple times in the stomach.
Whitehead.
What?
So yeah, and I was just like, okay, but again, this is like university students. I'm like, I'm assuming this is a young person,
Kid, yeah.
maybe an idiot. Sounds like an idiot move. Like this is some.
But
This is
could
some-
be very like physically fit. Also, a
Right,
physically
he's much
fit
younger than
idiot.
Houdini. Probably
Right.
taller.
Probably taller. Oh, Jen coming in with a hot tea. Just
Sorry,
So-
Harry.
Harry, being Harry, is injured, but ignores his symptoms and is like, no, I'm fine, and refuses to seek
He's like,
medical attention.
I
Oh
got
my
it.
God.
I just
So
need
he's
a
like-
minute.
So he's like, no, I'm fine. The show must go on. And he continued to perform for 2 more days while he's like physically like clearly
Bleeding
having a
internally.
problem.
Yeah.
Bleeding internally. Right.
So he goes about this for 2 days, and finally on October 24th he collapsed. So again, against his will, is taken to the hospital. So he collapses
I'm
unconscious.
fine. You're not fine. You're on
Quick-
the floor.
You're on the floor, sir. We're taking you in whether you
Yeah.
want to or not.
I
And
just
you're
gotta
tiny,
walk it
so
off. I gotta walk
So
it
we're
off.
gonna
Hold on.
carry you.
We're gonna carry you. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna put you in the milk can and like take you to the
Like here, like come on. I got
So,
you.
quick sidebar about appendicitis. Appendicitis is an inflammation of the appendix, which is a small finger-shaped pouch that is attached
what it is?
to. It's pretty small, yeah. It's attached to the large intestine. And the exact cause of appendicitis, it can be caused by a lot of different things, I guess, but it typically occurs when the appendix becomes blocked. And there are some common contributing factors. So you can have like a blockage, which, this is gross, hardened stool can block it,
Ooh.
leading to inflammation or infection.
Eat your
you
fruits
can
and
also
vegetables, everybody.
eat a
Keep things
vegetable,
moving.
please. Yep. You can also just get like swelling of the tissue in that area for various reasons, which can again like cause an infection like in your GI tract, and again like just cause it to become pinched and blocked. You can get like parasites and bacteria, again like infection blockage.
Yeah.
Also, any sort of gastrointestinal infection, specifically in that digestive tract, it can be like viral, bacterial, fungal.
Wow.
It can cause, again, inflammation to spread and become blocked.
Wow.
You can also get like tumors, a tumor, like in that area.
Tumor.
More rare, but still a problem.
Wow.
And then the last piece is trauma. So less common, but direct trauma to the abdomen can sometimes lead to appendicitis by causing inflammation or a blockage of the appendix. It sounds like, based on his deteriorated physical state and the fact that appendicitis is one of those sort of like murky things that can be caused by, you know, one or more like different interactions here. It's like you're just kind of a ticking time bomb for like some sort of physical issue, but it sounds like one of these or a couple of these is what was going on here. So if left untreated, the appendix, you know, it's inflamed and then it can burst, leading to what's called peritonitis, which is a serious infection of the abdominal cavity.
Because like it explodes basically.
Yes.
It leaks
I've
into
always
your
heard
abdomen.
that you don't want it to, you want to get it out first.
Before
Yes,
before it does that.
Yeah. So like usually like you have like a little bit of warning time. Like when you have appendicitis, like there are symptoms. It's like usually like pain. It's on the right side. It becomes more severe over time. Like there's like nausea.
Fever,
like you can't eat.
right.
Fever. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you get some sign that like, hey, this is bad. And like you have, it's not like immediate. Like I don't know you would know. I'd say like at least like have like a day, maybe a couple to like get to the hospital and have surgery. Let us know. Yeah. Doctors chime in. What is the time frame for appendicitis treatment? But also like, you know, we have also like drugs and stuff now where it's like if it's infection based, like you can like, you know, head it off at the pass with like penicillin medication before it like can burst or treat the infection before you're like, nope, we need to do surgery. But none of that was on the table in the 20s. So appendicitis in its like severest state, especially after it's like, you know, on the verge of bursting or you know somewhere there, you want to have surgery and remove it via appendectomy to prevent that peritonitis. So by the time Houdini collapsed and was taken to get medical attention against his will, his appendix had ruptured. That was why he collapsed. So he already had the peritonitis and he had the severe life-threatening infection. So they tried to do surgery. They were like, hey, like let's get in there and see what we can do.
It's Harry Houdini. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, like I don't know how great the surgery option was at that point as far as like, is this even effective?
I didn't want to think about it. Yeah.
I know, it's like grisly, but the infection was like way too extensive at that
and
point.
imagine what he actually had been ignoring because he was feeling pain, fever, nausea. Like he was not feeling good.
His body literally had to stop working for him
Right.
to carry
Right.
Literally shutting down. So he was not able to recover. So he died on October 31st of 1926 at age 52. So he died on Halloween. And specifically, his cause of death was noted as the complications from the peritonitis, the infection of that ruptured appendix. Wow. So they also, you know, and they cited like, hey, you were also physically ran down. You know, you resisted medical treatment and just
this is not our fault.
Yeah, like we did our best. Yeah, like we did our best. Yeah. But like you literally did everything like wrong to like stay alive. So, but almost immediately there were conspiracy theories and speculations suggesting that like he did not die solely from appendicitis, that he may have been the victim of foul play, or even some other thoughts altogether that he was not in fact even dead. So,
like Elvis.
Yes. They're like, he's so famous, he just wants to retire in peace. And so he like staged his death.
Here. Yeah.
So one of the theories was that he was murdered by the Spiritualists because
on Halloween,
he was trying to disprove, you know.
He pissed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm also like, okay, like Halloween is when the veil is thinnest.
That's exactly
in
what
the
I was
entire,
gonna say. Yeah.
In the entire year, the veil is the thinnest between worlds on Halloween. So
how intriguing.
Was all his trying to disprove of spiritualism and mediumship, was he just like working up a really big ball of angry karma that just hit him when the veil was thin. I don't know.
Well, and then some people in the spiritualist conspiracy theory, they also thought that the guy, like J. Gordon Whitehead, who punched him, he wasn't a rando at all, but it was like a deliberate attack orchestrated by the spiritualists.
I've heard of that.
To like
that's
enact revenge. Like they paid him.
Yeah, some like college kid needs some money here.
Yep.
Go punch you.
And they were also like, and they were like, oh, well, we know he's really run down and he's really tired. So if we get some young guy to really like, beat him just right, we can like tip him over the edge.
Kick him over.
Kind of thing.
I think I heard somewhere randomly, and this goes along with that theory and the rumor that would grow, that he was like a boxer or something, not Houdini, Whitehead.
The guy.
So like
Whitehead.
he knew where to punch. I had heard that too.
No evidence of him being a boxer. Just
a guy.
Just a rumor. Yeah.
Excuse me. Another theory that people really liked, and the public sort of latched onto this one pretty early because they liked the drama of it, and they're like, this feels on brand, was that Houdini may have been poisoned. And they were like, oh, all like the symptoms and the fatigue, because remember, he'd been complaining for a long time. I was like, I don't feel good. I'm really tired. So they're like, oh, he was poisoned. And they were slowly introducing, slowly introducing a toxin, and that this just was finally like the final blow, and he just finally was poisoned to death.
Wow. Was it Bess? Did she do it? She put it in his morning coffee. She was like, I'm tired of you loving your mother more than me.
Bess is like, I'm tired of being second. I'm tired of you going to the cemetery and just laying
on the grave.
And then I have to clean your shirts every day.
She's like, you want to be with her? Help me with her.
Truly, and like Bess was also like low key, especially after his mom died. He'd been like acting like as his mother. Like she writes, like she had to like tell him to like put on clean underwear and like change his shirt. It was like low key, like being mom. Yeah.
Oh.
But again, like by all accounts, she really did love him, and like they were married for 30 years. And after he died, she said our marriage was one long honeymoon. So I don't think Bess.
Yeah, because they never consummated it. That's why it was one long honeymoon.
She was just waiting and waiting and waiting.
She's like, hello.
Any day now, it's gonna happen for me.
It was like the marital night every night.
Every night, just waiting and waiting. But
I also have to
chronically fatigued.
I also have to wonder too, with Bess's mom being so like, oh, like the stage is wicked, like you know, what a floozy. That she was also like, I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. Like maybe this is like a mutual. Who knows? Who could say?
Who knows?
But I did think of that. I was like, oh,
we like
poor
Bess
though. It's okay. The ultimate non-floozy, Bess.
Yeah, ultimate non-floozy.
The ultimate non-floozy.
We have floozy and we have non-floozy.
And it's just Bess's headshot.
Not a floozy.
You have Nell Gwynn on one, and then you have Bess on the other one.
I love. And then the third piece about the conspiracies and the speculation was that the delay in medical treatment, it was part of a larger plot to again like ensure that he died, so that like somehow his enemies had conspired to like advise him against seeking medical attention or to like discourage him from like going to the hospital.
They were like in his inner circle.
Yeah, but there's really this was all like a theory from the outside.
Right.
Because people close to him are like, we've begged him to like take a break,
go to the doctor,
please slow down. But and then like the last piece of it was just like there were just general whispers and thoughts among the public that Houdini's death was part of an elaborate escape act and that he was not actually dead.
Yeah,
they're like, well, this is just another escape. And that whole sentiment, it was really largely based on, again, like his whole career and this like larger than life persona. There was no evidence to suggest any of that. He'd never hinted that he was going to do anything like that. But it was really about that, all of his escapes were so death defying and people could not accept that he had died.
That he had died.
His whole thing was all about like escaping death. And, they're like, well, and it had these like fake death-defying scenarios that of course were all very like well rehearsed, but again, to a viewer, to an audience, they're like, he's escaped death so many times, like why not this time?
Right. And it was that cognitive dissonance of like, he'll be back.
Yeah, and it was back. So all of that to say, it was dramatic, it was sudden, like there was no there was no precursor. It was just like, well, he's dead, So some people thought that, like, you know, again, like we saw him, like, you know, after death somewhere, you know, but again, this never.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, he is in fact deceased. He really did die. And, you know, subsequently, like, we have the medical records. Like, he did have an autopsy. Like, he had a very public funeral and burial. It was super well documented. It was attended by like thousands of people.
Wow.
He's buried in Queens. So it
In
was
his
attended by like,
tomb?
and it's, I don't, yeah, it was like, this is the burial and like the funeral was like a very big deal. Like, all like fellow magicians were there. Like, it was very well recorded. He's dead. We buried him. And then his wife, you know, who, again, if anyone was going to be in on it, it was her. But she then made it for the rest of her life. It was her job to preserve not only his professional legacy in the magic community, but she continued his like anti-spiritualism work with debunking, like, you know, false like mediums and stuff. But this is really interesting. After he died, Bess would hold an annual seance on Halloween on the anniversary of his death in an attempt to communicate with his spirit. Because as much as she and him were like, we want to debunk the charlatans, but there was that little kernel of like, we still like the idea of this. Like, we want to believe that there's something to this. Like, some of these people are frauds, but we don't think the whole thing is BS.
It doesn't mean everybody is. Yeah.
Yes. Like, we still think there might be something to this. So she would try to contact him because he had told her that if there was any way for him to return from beyond the grave, he was going to do so on the anniversary of his death. And they had a secret on Halloween. Well, he didn't know it was going to be Halloween, but they had talked about like before he died, because he had made, while he was grieving his mother, he had made elaborate plans for his own like death and burial and like his wishes for her after he died. He wrote a whole letter to her about like the type of man she should look for if she ever wanted to get married again, like after him, and like the conditions under which like he would be cool with her moving on. Like, he gave it swant.
Did she move on?
She didn't live that much longer.
Okay.
Yeah, but she was just like, nah, I'm good. But so they had a code word. They had secret code words, and it was Rosabelle Believe was the code words.
Rosabelle
Believe.
Rosabelle Believe, and that was what he was going to use to let her know, like, this is really me. No one else knows these words.
Okay.
So if anyone is trying to like fake you, if they don't use the code word, is not me.
Right.
Please tell me that something happened with Rosabelle Believe.
So Rosabelle was actually, it was this title of the song that was special to them. Like, that was the significance of it. Because it was a song like Bess used to sing. Like, it was their song. And Rosabelle Believe, it was supposed to be a full message. It was like a 10-word message, and Rosabelle Believe was part of it. But, I guess then he decided it was too complicated, and he's like, hey, maybe if I have trouble getting through from the other side, as long as you hear Rosabelle Believe, like, just know that, like, it's me. So that was sort of the final agreed on code word. So she would have this seance every year, and just, you know, never really gave that up. And she then became, again, like an advocate for exposing charlatans and, you know, frauds in the spiritualist realm. She kept trying to, you know, preserve his legacy and worked with like biographers and authors who wanted to write about him and just wanted to really make sure he was being accurately portrayed.
That's nice.
She stayed in touch with like other magicians like in the community and just kept up the network because, again, he was like this leading figure among other magicians. And she just really wanted to maintain his image and his legacy, and also, again, like that style of magic as being legitimate and respectable. So she had a final seance in 1936. So this was 10 years after he died. So this was the 10th anniversary of his death. October 31st, 1936.
Come on,
Rosabelle. Come on.
She had it at the Knickerbocker Hotel in Hollywood, California, and unfortunately was not successful. So after this, Beth said, Houdini did not come through. My last hope is gone. I do not believe that Houdini can come back to me or to anyone. So it was like, it's a little sad to me because it was sort of like, that was it. Like her last hope
That's
there
sad.
was dashed. I know, that was in 1936. She died in 1943. She was 67 years old. She died of a heart attack. But
and a broken heart because he never came back to her.
I think so. Like, she didn't even live another 10 years after that final seance.
That's
like,
sad.
She was just like, oh, but I mean, she really, I think, did succeed in terms of like his legacy.
Yeah.
There's a whole list of museums.
In
the U.S. and in Hungary too that are like dedicated to him and surrounding his career and his artifacts and his life. Like I said, he's buried in New York. There's a huge like, monument in the crypt. There's like a bust that he had commissioned of himself that's on it. Like it's the most extra and the most dramatic because of course.
Dramatic.
Maybe he was like, girl, I don't need to come back. Like I'm everywhere.
I'm everywhere. I'm already here.
Yeah.
And this is funny. There was like, again, he made like elaborate plans for his death and he had a whole list of people who were allowed to be in the tomb because
With him?
It was supposed to be his family's tomb, but he had a falling out with one of his brothers and sister-in-laws, and he wrote that they were not allowed to be in the tomb because he'd fallen out with them for reasons that like don't matter, but it was funny. But then Bess was the only in-law who was allowed to be in the tomb because none of his other siblings, spouses, or children were allowed to be in the tomb. But there was an exception for Bess. He was like, Bess can be buried with us when she goes, but nobody else. Like
no one else.
Wow. The family we like, mom and dad, and Bess and not these other people.
Well, and of course, mom, because
yes. Oh, well, that was. I mean, literally.
That's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Dad buried there too? Did they bring Dad? Okay.
Yeah, he was. So again, like they already had a plot, but the tomb, like this huge
monument. Yeah.
Yeah. Like above and below ground, like it's a lot. I'll put a picture in the thing.
I need to see it.
Yeah, but it is maintained by the Society of American Magicians. They maintain it because it's like a pilgrimage where like people go to like remember Houdini. There's also a Houdini Plaza in Appleton, Wisconsin. It's a public plaza. There's a bronze statue of him there too, near where he lived, and I guess the statue like depicts him like doing some sort of escape. And then he's also remembered at the Magic Castle in LA, which they have a Houdini seance room, and seances are conducted in homage to his legacy.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I want to go to Magic Castle so bad.
Me too. Hello, everyone.
Invite us. Please,
maybe we could do like a trip. We could do a trip to like the Houdini. Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll be invited to the Magic Castle because
you have to be invited.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, you can't just. Yeah, you can't just buy a ticket to that place.
No,
so
I'll call Johnny Depp.
Okay.
I'll call Johnny.
Well, great. Do it.
Get on that, Olivia. So wrapping it up here, Houdini's legacy among magicians, he is even today. I mean, he's been dead for almost 100 years, but he's still an unparalleled master of escape and this pioneer of magic. So he's celebrated for his extraordinary feats of physical endurance, but also for his relentless pursuit of excellence and innovation in performance. And he was really known for, again, exposing the fraudulent spiritualists, but his commitment to maintaining the integrity of magic.
That's interesting.
As a legitimate performance professionalism.
Yeah.
And his life story, it was really characterized by this drama and this showmanship, but also this unwavering work ethic. And I think just, trying to be just like ultimately a good dude and to inspire other magicians and entertainers, because that was really important to him. So that is Houdini. That is his legacy.
So interesting.
Mysterious or really
very mysterious.
Not so mysterious death, but like again, like could have maybe been prevented with self-care. We could have gotten a few more years. We just gotten a massage.
Or he angered the ghosts by saying that this mediumship wasn't true, and on the day of the thinnest veil, they were like, "Oh yeah."
Come with us.
Punch to the gut.
But because again, it's like Halloween. I don't know, man. Like that seems like an awful.
That's the thing that really seems like. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah, precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So Olivia, what are we doing next time? You're on deck. You're on deck with our next episode. What are we doing?
Well, speaking of strange relationships with mothers.
Speaking of segues,
we are going to be talking about the true story of Mama Rose, but the real Mama Rose, who, you may not know this, actually committed a murder.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, buckle up, boys. She's got a loaded pistol.
Oh my God. I cannot wait.
I cannot wait.
next week, Mama Rose with some murders, putting some murder back on the docket. Jen, where can the listeners follow us and find all this great content that we've alluded to?
We have an Instagram. We have a Facebook page, Wicked Stage Pod. And we also have a Patreon, Life Upon the Wicked Stage. So please join us there. You can join for free. And we also have a lot of different tiers. We have some fun stuff. We're going to do monthly brunches with us where you can do some Q&As. We have maybe some free merch, some VIP things, a lot of really fun stuff. So take a look at that and please support us. We're having a blast doing this. We want to keep doing that in the future. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you next time, friends.
Yeah.
And scene.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Wicked Stage Pod.
Follow us on Instagram and check out our Patreon for more exclusive content.
These deliciously wicked episodes drop every other Friday, so make sure you subscribe or follow and don't get left waiting in the wings.